I'm Helen Norbury, and this is Becoming Unapologetically Me, the show all about authentic self-expression with expert guests from the fields of health, leadership, and mindset. This show is here to show you that you don't need to conform to the expectations that friends, family, and society have of you. And actually, what we can unearth when we find the courage to become the unapologetic version of who we are. Grab a cup of coffee and get your notepad out for this week's episode. Hello and welcome back to Becoming Unapologetically Me. Today, I'm really excited to talk to Sasha Greenidge. Sasha's going to talk to us today about one of my favorite topics, which is about leading with authenticity. So I really totally resist the concept that leaders should fit into a neat little box and actually really welcome this conversation so that we can talk about each leader bringing a really unique dynamic, energy and skill set to their role. And that's whether you're a leader in the home, in the workplace, or in your community. So, Sasha, can you tell me a bit about what authentic leadership means to you?
So what it means is not fitting into a box. We all apply for jobs. There's a set of tasks or qualifications that we obviously have to have in our positions, but we also need to stand out. We're kind of given mixed messaging. I feel like sometimes like, oh, well, you have to follow all of these, like tick all these boxes, but we also want you to kind of be this, like, you also have to be very unique and kind of out there, but nobody ever tells you how that is. And a lot of people have so much inside of them that makes them stand out as a leader. But many of us just don't know what that is. But standout leader is somebody who's like really breaking barriers and willing to go down and take these risks into unknown areas and really stepping out and being able to show up for others and lead that way and to bring that about in other people as well. And that's what I really think is like a standout, authentic leader.
Yeah, I think that's so true. What you've just said about that challenge that we have between what you think that you should do as a leader, and maybe we look to certain role models in leadership and go, so that's what a leader looks like. And then that sort of special sauce that you've got inside of you and how you bring that into the role as well. I've seen it very particularly with women going into leadership roles and seeing in an organization maybe where it's all men in the leadership role. And so they kind of step into that real alpha female and kind of forget all of the amazingness that we bring as women into leadership.
Right. And we're not going to find that in anybody else. It's a cheesy kind of saying, but it is inside of us. And it's absolutely everything that I've learned. It's been absolutely groundbreaking on how authentic we really are. And speaking about those male leadership roles, we're actually moving out of that. There's no more what they call bro marketing and going down all of these like aggressive sales funnels or aggressively going after things. That's not in anymore. It's really any ladies like, listen, this is our time because it is our powerful feminine energy that is coming in, that's beginning to take place. And you're more spiritual in 2027 is really where this massive shift is going to happen.
Amazing.
And so for all the guys as well, that like aggressive, like get ahead, be like this stronger leader, do everything and listen to these gurus. That's not it anymore. Yeah. And we are now our own leaders and our own authority. And so it's pretty important, I think, at this point to kind of show up and be your own leader and learn, well, who the heck is that? Because many of us don't even know.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally get that. And I really see the same, that women are finally getting the permission, in inverted commas, to step into our power. And I was listening to something Simon Sinek was saying the other day, that he really believes that women are better CEOs compared to their male counterparts, really due to that understanding that women very naturally have of human dynamic and this almost innate understanding that loving people and taking care of people, that's actually really good for business. And he said men often ask for case studies and evidence as to where this is the case, whereas women just get it. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think that like I said, it's just where we're moving now. And so it's really important to have that innate empathy we more so, I guess some men or some people would call it more of this emotional thing, but we are moving into an era where we're craving more connection. And so this, I don't care that you have like this family thing going on, or I don't care like what's going on with that company and that customer and everything. That's not where it's at anymore. People have now, especially after the pandemic and all of these things, are craving that connection. I can honestly see the difference. I have a coach of my own. I had reached out to somebody else, and I can see where there's a disconnect between the two. My coach personally, I have a connection. I'm able to speak and connect, and she's able to offer me advice face to face, and she has a lot of clients. Whereas I went for help in this smaller area with somebody else, and I'm going through a funnel, and there's admin and that are just kind of responding and things like that. And I'm really turned off about it. And I'm like, oh my God, I've been so spoiled with my leader for so long that I've been able to have a relationship, a connection. I know her family dynamic, even though I've never met them. That's really important because we're going into, in human design, they're calling it the unknown. So we're craving more of this connection with people. And people, like, if you're a leader, you really need to be making connections with the people that you are either working with or clients that you're serving, and not just putting them out to pasture and like shoving a video in their face and doing this. Like what we're doing now is creating that connection with listeners. And that's like, it's really important because people are craving that and they want to get back to that. So it's really important, that connection.
I think you're so right, because I think we've become more astute around social media, for example, and really being able to discern what is real and what isn't real. And like you say, craving that connection to real people and for that rawness of people, rather than a sort of polished, curated version that is presented to us through social media. Yeah, so I totally get that. So you touched then on human design, and I think you use gene keys, is that right, to help people on their journey to self-discovery and empowerment. It's a topic that I'm not overly familiar with, and I'm sure many of my listeners will be the same. So can you tell us a bit more about what it is and how it works?
So it's basically, I like to just not go down like an esoteric kind of way about it, because I really like the way that it was presented to me in a practical sense. And for transparency, I'm still learning, because once you go down the rabbit hole of yourself, it's endless. It's endless. So just putting that out there. Gene keys, I'm pretty solid. Human design, I am just gone down like the rabbit hole in Alice in Wonderland. It's crazy. But it's basically ancient wisdom mixed in with things from the I Ching and just basically ancient knowledge. I don't know how it works. It's like I tell people, I make coffee every morning in my Nespresso. I don't know the engineering behind it. It works. It makes my coffee. That's it.
Yeah, the coffee tastes good. We're going with
what I do is I get people in touch with their design. They kind of give me their design. What I'm able to look at is, first, we just wonder, everybody's created differently, but we're not all meant to do the same thing in the same way. It's not cookie cutter. And this shows how. So when I'm able to look just even briefly at a design, I can tell what the public role is. So for me, I'm an experienced authority. I have to, fail forward. I go through the entrepreneurial way. Fail my way forward. We all should be following this if you are an entrepreneur, and knowing a lot about me wanting to go to the depths of things and information and people to be able to help them, which is what I crave and I love doing. There are other people that are natural influencers where they can pick up like this cup of coffee and be like, oh, hey, this is the best coffee I ever have. And they're able to sell it. And a lot of people are being sold that way, of like this, what we call a 2-4 natural influencer. But not everybody is that way. So there are different public roles. That's one example, only a smidgen of like your profile. I'm able to see the style at which you're meant to speak to your people. We know that, yes, we need to niche. We know that we're not meant to cast our net and speak to everybody, but there's a way that you're meant to do it. And the way that you're meant to present information. There are people with what they call a line 5 that are leaders that just want to, they're just meant to give practical solutions to people and not really influence them like somebody with like a 2-4 kind of profile. So it's a really powerful way of like getting to know yourself. Because personally, I have absolutely surpassed everything that I wanted to do and who I am and how I'm meant to serve people. But it's not such a, how am I supposed to do this? Or what am I supposed to do? And who am I serving?
Yeah. It's really interesting, isn't it? Because there are so many cookie cutter solutions. This is how you should do your business and you should conform and fit in a box. Is it any wonder that people start to feel burned out if they're trying to operate their business in a way that just doesn't align with who they are and how they were designed? It's no surprise that so many people struggle with burnout.
Yeah. And they all work. I mean, they all work, but they're taking somebody like me who's like, or like, let's say somebody with what they call a 2-4 profile, who you're sitting here and you're saying, oh, market and go to people's DMs or whatever. That's for them. Why? Because they have to get to know you. Like their clientele has to get to know them. So whether they do a master class and they show up as their authentic self and they kind of bring people into their network, or they have people that refer them. That's where a lot of people, you're like, how do people get all these referrals? They're probably a 2-4 and people love them. And they're like, oh, go speak to so-and-so. And now they are comfortable speaking to their vet and they're comfortable, but they would never, I hate the word should, but like they should never go just in somebody's DMs because that just goes against their design.
Like,
and it will come off that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's other people where like maybe somebody with that line 5 where it's just like they have a practical solution. They don't have a, like, I shouldn't say it's not an emotional connection, but they have a practical solution. And there's an energy that comes up like that and that people are like drawn to it. And that's right for them.
Yeah. Amazing. So was there something that happened in your life, like a sort of a turning point that kind of got you interested in human design and Gene Keys? Or
so I actually used to do network marketing. And of course, that was the number one. That's the prime example of many ways that you just are forced to do a lot of things, icky things that are not within the design. And of course, I was frustrated. So that's how I had kind of met with my coach and was like, okay, I'm at an absolute loss because I am used to getting a task, working at it, getting it done, like in my day job and being like yay, Sasha, you did so well. What, and this was really hard for me. It did not come easy to me. So got a coach. She started to go down the line of like, there's something here with the Gene Keys and human design, but she is very logical and very practical and wants to do this and leaders. And it has been a game changer. And that is how I was like, oh my God, like you kind of breathe a sigh of relief. Thank God that's not what I meant to do. Yeah. And like in terms of like also just not showing up as myself and being icky and saying, oh, well, this person has so much success here. Why am I not doing it? But it all came that like I wasn't supposed to be doing that at all. Yeah. And a lot of the tactics now too, I'm not meant to do that. But I did have to show up in a different way where for a really long time, I was hiding my experiences and the bad and the ugly of it. And that is my mess is actually my message. The one thing that I was trying to hide is the one thing that is pivotal in my whole business and how I'm meant to show up and speak out about it. I'm supposed to, from the rooftop, say like, this is what happened in my, like certain things that have come up that haven't been so great. And this is how I'm meant to show up. And that was scary. And that was something I denied for a really long time, but it's like, no, it's not that. And no, it's not holding this up and trying to sell it. And that's what people need to realize. They could be on the right track right now, but could be playing it small and need to like step it up with if they're in corporate or somewhere else. It doesn't mean, oh, I have to be a coach or I have to do this now. It's you could be on the right path, just needing to stop playing small.
I think often we're taught as well, aren't we? Or we certainly pick the message up at some point, even if it's not an explicit lesson, that some kind of perfection is what we're striving for, even though we're humans and by definition are not perfect. We still resist those, call them the flaws or the parts of us that we don't want to look at so closely. So what experience would you say in your life has challenged you the most and taught you something really valuable about yourself?
I think business as a whole now. Right now, my business is pushing me, like I said, in in the regular, we'll say regular job, that there's that task and like, this is how I execute it and this is what I do. And I'm just really like good at that. With business, it is pivoting and it frustrates me because there is another part of my profile that is a perfectionist. And that is like, even coming on here and being like, the line one in my profile is like, do I know enough? Because I really study things and I really study people and I go to the depths of that. And so it's just really, really important that the point, I think it's business as a whole that is teaching me that I need to be okay with failing and knowing that, because I know we all talk about successes and things, but really it's in the failure and in picking yourself back up and saying, okay, that didn't go the way it was, but that's good to know. And to know that like, okay, you're either playing too small and you need to go bigger, or you need to go in a different direction with different people. And I think that's been like still, because it always comes up, you get over one hurdle and then it's like, okay, here's the next thing. So I think that's something that keeps coming up that is really has been a massive shift, is just even just acknowledging that and being able to step up and be able to pivot and not really stay in that, oh man, this didn't work out and everything else and that pity party thing. It's like stepping up and just saying, okay, what's next? What's the next thing that we can kind of do and step up and
yeah, really resonate with that as well, because feeling my business now, which is my second business, I had a previous business with my ex-husband, and feeling that sense of failure. And then when I could kind of change my language around that and change my perception around that to being, actually, it wasn't a failure, that you either succeed or you learn something. And actually to be able to take that forwards, I find so much more powerful than beating myself up with the sense of failure, whatever that is, throughout our journeys through life, because there's no such thing as a straight road with no bumps in it for anybody, is there? So have you had times where you felt out of alignment with who you are and kind of slightly at odds with yourself? And how did you navigate those times?
So making sure that I'm in clarity when I'm out of alignment, it's calling it out. I think what I used to do was to force round pegs in square holes. I just loved it. What I do now is because I'm at a point right now where I'm there and I kind of pause and I take a step back. It's not a stop, but it's a step back. And I kind of see what is out of place and why. It's really important, whether you have a coach or you have just somebody to bounce, like a logical, neutral person to bounce something off of. Innately, it's your own intuition, but sometimes it's really hard for us to be objective. So I'm really happy that I do have somebody that I can do that with, and I am going to do that with. But it's really taking a look and taking a survey of like everything that's going on and where it's alignment, and being able to kind of really think on that. So for me, waiting for that clarity now, like right now, I know I'm very emotional about this. And so I'm trying not to make any decisions of like, oh, I'm going to quit or I'm going to this, or I'm going to stop this completely. I'm waiting for that calm. Yes. And just making sure that like I'm taking a survey. Oh, this seems great. Or I like what I'm doing here, but something like working with either this type of person is something's off. And you'll start to realize that when you're in this state of calm, unless you have that gut reaction, then just go with that, because some of them have it in their design and it's like, just go. But I do have to do that. But when I'm misaligned, it's really taking that pause and not just throwing like the baby out with the bathwater, but I'm really able to sit and see where that's coming from, and being able to now calmly like just kind of take that out of my life and find out, okay, well, what is it that I need to align? So I'm not really going too much to other people, because I'm looking within myself. Everything like is within me and within my design, and just saying, where is it? Why is that not aligning? I know if it's not aligning, if it's literally in what I deal with is a lot of victim mentality things and stuff like that with people. If something is talking about, I don't know, like a toy shop or something like that, that has nothing to do with what is aligning with me or my business, that needs to go. That's an extreme, but like, that's where I go now. If people or topics or things don't align with what I'm doing, it's very easy to look at my design, who I'm made to speak to, my communication, my personal law, all of it is right there. steer. If I steer from it now, because I can't unsee it and I can't unlearn any of it, I'm out of alignment. But I put something through
know how to get back on track.
Yeah. And something, they're small enough, they almost align, but they come in and then they cause like a little like disruption. But I'm able to like kind of sift through a lot of things.
Get going. So just picking up on something you said there that about this victim mode and things like that as well, that I understand that you help women a lot to address codependency tendencies and to really stop seeking that external validation. So do you see any common themes between the women who are experiencing these and what they've experienced in their lives up till now?
Yeah, a lot of to my people pleasers, like that's what I see a lot of, especially with that victim mentality. Because I think for myself personally, for oh my gosh, since like elementary school all the way up until college, I've literally given. I feel like if my life was in a box, I've literally taken a box, given it to my parents, who then gave it to my husband, and ticked off like all these boxes, and nothing was my own. And so when I got to a point where somebody, and if you're any listeners that are just like, you can't, if I sit here and I say to you, what do you want? And you have to spend more than 5, 10, 15 minutes. It took me a year, because I was like, oh no, that's what my parents wanted for me. That's what my job wants for me. This is what my husband wants for me. And this is even what my kids want from me. And that means you have a problem and you are a victim to other people, and you can't, I mean, literally every little thing. Do I want to get a new job? I'm asking my husband or my best friend for their advice. And that's okay sometimes, but like now I just stand in my power. Anything that I'm doing with my business, and I guess it's very frustrating for a lot of people who are very used to me coming to them for a lot of things. Now I say to people, I just need you to listen. I don't really need that. I don't need the advice, because for me and mine, I have a lot of individual empowerment in my thing. So the fact that I was just giving that away to other people and then wondering why I didn't get the life or results that I wanted should not have been like a shock.
I really resonate with that. It was exactly the same journey. I think it was 2015. I had a health coach say to me, so what do you like doing?
Yeah.
I have to come back to you on that one. And same thing. I was like, I don't actually know what I like doing. I know what I do. And so it was all about looking after other people. But I was like, what do I actually like doing? And it was like, wow, this is a big wake up call. And it's so difficult to answer what should be a relatively simple question.
Right.
So yeah, totally get it. And actually that just links in really nicely. You're just talking about how you're so sort of empowered now. How does everything that we've spoken about all link together to really empower women so that they can influence and inspire others as well?
So the main thing, what I really love about the two tools is that you are studying yourself. Too long, we're going out, we're looking for those said gurus. We're on social media. It could be a beautiful thing, but it's also something where we're just really looking at lifestyles and the beauty of people themselves or their lives and everything else. And newsflash, everything is not what it is. And many people are not living true to their design and what really they're meant to be doing. But you're studying yourself. And so now it's like all these answers, even if I try to kind of go out, like that's not what I'm meant to be doing. My answers are here. I literally have a map of what I'm here to be doing. It's really important that like everything, what you're meant to do, who you're meant to serve, showing up as the leader you were meant to. Not all of us are meant to be this like tough, like high powered, like strong leader and everything. Sometimes it's that silent leader that's like really advising people around to do things. And they actually have more power than the person that is like voicing out everything. But for me, just knowing who I am on like personally and what I'm here to show up and serve and how I'm meant to serve it, I'm only a piece of that puzzle, and kind of looking to link up with other people that are now on that journey as well. But there's no more seeking so much outside for the validation and the rah-rahs from everybody else and the accolades and everything. They're nice when I do get them, but it feels better knowing that I wasn't trying to be anybody else to get that. And there's so many opportunities and things that are lost. A lot of just knowing that friendships and things like that might get lost along the way because you just weren't being yourself. A lot of people, some people are still, they're hanging in there with me, but they're having a really hard time. My husband as well. Like I'm always transparent about that I'm stepping into my power. And that's not something I think he's having a lot of trouble with. But I'm okay if that doesn't pan out. It's been almost 20 years. So showing up as this leader in my family, which I always was in our dynamic as that strong mom, but I'm able to now give myself grace, and especially knowing my children's designs have been giving them grace as well. But stepping into now finally knowing what is it that I like? How is it that I like to work and show up in a more healthy way? Realizing when my energy is right now in this kind of cycle and everything, what I start to do is now I'm pulling back on things because I'm like, oh, I could see where this is going and it's a crash and burn for me. I don't. So I'm now aware and not looking to the standard. Oh, you're working yourself into the ground, but guess what? People are still patting you on the back. Keep going. Now it's like, whoa, okay. Being able to say no. I think Greg McEwen said it beautifully. He's like, no is a complete sentence. Yeah. And being able to show up for a lot more people. And it's like, no, I can't do this at this time, but I can show up now that we're in December after the new year and just kind of pulling back on things. So you really you begin to get boundaries. You begin to set up different things. Your circle starts to look a lot differently of who you're surrounding yourself with. And that really creates a really good leadership thing where you're having the right people in your circle.
Just thinking what a powerful data set to have access to be able to run your life with, to have that sort of constant feedback in all the directions to really support you, knowing when to stop, when to go, when to turn up, when to turn down. And what a powerful set of information. And I'm really, really curious to explore this more now. I think this could be the secret to unlocking so much.
It is. And it's just I tell people, it's there's a lot that resonates. And then there's things that they're like, oh my goodness, I didn't know that about myself. The way I'm showing up now, I just never, ever, I would never see myself here, speaking and being like, oh my goodness, I would have let maybe 5 people say, well, what do you know? But when you start to step up and you read a lot about yourself that you're just I'm really meant to show up that way. You can't dispute it. It's you. It's how you were meant to show up in this world. It's somebody you wanted to know what you're meant to be here for. Here's your map. It's how you're meant to show up. And that's it. You could either take it or leave it, but I refuse now. It's very hard to go back and I won't do it anymore. Giving my power away like that.
Yeah. Like you say, you can't unknow it once you do know it. So
you're going to let that go. So when I get down on myself and the paradigms creep in, and if this happens to anybody else, really just know that you're onto something big, especially if you're doing something different. You're really onto something big, and anything that kind of falls by the wayside, it just means that wasn't for you and that wasn't the path it was meant to go on. Just mourn it, let it go, and just kind of keep going and keep trying to kind of go in that direction. I can't, it's hard. Sometimes I want to vent to people, but they're not going to understand. It's nothing that I just have to kind of look in and ask myself the question, what the heck is coming up? What's going on? Why, what? And it's frustrating, but you'll figure it out because it's within you. And if it's like you were saying, things are not aligning, you gotta reroute. It's always going to reroute you back onto path. But we should know what that is.
A lot of what you said feels quite independent and alone. Is there a role?
From mine.
Is there a role of community?
in human design, they have what they call a split. I'm like a split. So a lot of and there's different ones. I have a lot of independent because I have to do a lot of my self-study to then bring out everything to you, the masses. But I have to do that. What they call in Gene Keys, my radiance and purpose, what I'm meant to bring out to the world is me stepping up and being a bridge. Literally, it says I'm meant to be a bridge to help women to their purpose. Because I was that woman that was not empowered, never in a million years would think that I'm a leader, because everybody else made me believe that, because they fed on my insecurities. Now it's just like, I can't, no. And through my story, like I said, I am meant to really just say anybody else that's feeling this way, whether you feel like you're in the perfect job or anything else, but there's something still lacking. You're not in line. You're not aligned. So that's where that community piece comes, is me bringing that to them. Some people, it's really bonding. It's a lot of theirs is creating through community.
I was just thinking, imagine if you'd known this, like when you were 10 years old, or, like how powerful it would be.
I always tell the story of how I was, and I say this in a loving way to myself, that I was this weird kid. I was a weird kid with a fantastic imagination. I think where it got to me is like a lot of kids at that time, they were already so conditioned in their own stuff that like I would get teased and things like that, and would have just loved to continue to see where that person went before like the conformity started and been like, oh, I don't really like being laughed at, or it's easier to just kind of try and be like everybody else. And it was extra hard for me because I was back in like the 80s when I was in elementary school. I was like one of like maybe 4 or 5 Black kids in this whole school. Right. So my entire life, I grew up being already just physically unique to everybody around me. Yeah. But then that personality.
It's so important at that age to try and fit in, isn't it? And like you say, in your mess is your message. And no doubt the reason why you had to experience it. I so loved having this conversation, and you've totally opened my eyes. It's something I really want to explore more, because it sounds like the little treasure map to your life, basically.
Oh my God,
yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for this conversation. Obviously, we're going to put all your details in the show notes so people can explore it a bit more with you and find their own little treasure map for their life. So thank you so much for sharing those tidbits with us today. And yeah, really, really appreciate everything that you've shared with us. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Becoming Unapologetically Me. Make sure you subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts so you never miss an episode.